Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Week 11 preview here for you. Got a lot to get to. Only two teams on a bye, Indianapolis and New Orleans, both idle this week. We'll start things off in Foxborough with the Patriots hosting the Jets this evening, Thursday evening. Patriots 12.5-point favorites in this one. The Jets, well, I'm awful sore at the Jets, Mario. They ruined my survivor last week. I did not rock with the Panthers, which was smart, but not accounting for the idea of two special teams touchdowns given up by the Browns was foolish, of course.
Yeah, sorry if I played any role in directing you there. I definitely didn't think that the Jets would score two special teams touchdowns, especially from Wanwu's really good, but Isaiah Williams, he's not even supposed to be a good punt returner. But anyway, this Jets team is still so bad. It really might be the worst team we've kind of ever seen. So this Patriots team in Foxborough, I don't think the short week hurts them. I don't think we need to worry about the Jets getting two or even one special teams touchdown in this game. So that 13.5 kind of seems low to me, honestly. I think Drake May would need to have two truly boneheaded turnovers for that to be particularly plausible, actually.
Right. And I don't see that happening. I think that, last week you could say that historically, when there's some line movement away from a team that kind of sells at the trade deadline, oftentimes they can kind of end up springing up. But I think like the week after, things correct and settle back into what we would expect from this Jets team, who, obviously let go of Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams as they try to build for the future. On the fantasy side, Trevion Henderson coming off the big game for New England, and Ramondre Stevenson will not be playing. So all of a sudden, Henderson becomes, what do you think? Like a solid RB2 type of play for this week?
Yeah, at worst, or maybe I should at least say I think he would be a high-end running back too, ideally. So with Stevenson out, if Jennings is still looking somewhat questionable, bruise, I guess, bruise knee. Mm-hmm. I don't know, unless if the Patriots didn't call anyone else up. So Terrell Jennings, I think, could also be to the tune of like 10 or 12 carries and a short yardage touchdown or two. Busy in this game, but that's not something that would make me worry about Henderson. I think it's more like the Patriots should just be able to take whatever they want here.
I'm thinking so as well. Let's see. I guess any other kind of lingering Patriots pass catchers thoughts going into this week? Do you feel good about starting?
Well, Diggs, I probably am starting, hopefully as like a wide receiver 4 or flex type, but the per snap efficiency is pretty locked in. If he's not going to play more than 40 snaps a game, maybe the upside isn't very good, but against Jets corners this bad, I don't know if Diggs doesn't need to be on any like featured reads to accidentally get open against these guys. And I don't really assume Mac Hollins is going to do much in any given game. So I think Diggs is pretty well locked in. And if you got to go with a Demario Douglas type, I guess some people are in worse spots, but I don't think the Patriots will need to throw much in this one is the issue.
I don't either. And then on the other side, yeah, I'm expecting kind of a punchless offense from the Jets. Garrett Wilson will remain out for this one as well. So, I think there's a very good reason as to why the team total for the Jets is just 14.5 points. I believe that's the lowest implied team total of the entire slate.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Jets, particularly without Garrett Wilson, but even with him, it's like what's even supposed, other than Breece Hall and Isaiah Davis, I guess, is like there's no even a sensible way to move the ball, and those guys are going to run against defenses that are cheating against the run. So even though I think Breece Hall is really, actually I think Davis is good too. I think they're both quite good, but I don't know how you're supposed to work with conditions like these.
Yeah, the Breece situation is tricky for this week because it's unlikely that you have a ton of better options to where you can put him on your bench. But you might in this setup where the Patriots have just completely snuffed out the run game for opposing offenses all season.
Right. And I worry about defenses even worse than the Patriots being an issue for the Jets running game, especially early in games. I think if the Jets resign to the fact that they're not going to win either way, and they're certainly not going to win any sooner by throwing the ball, and if they stuck with the run in the second half, like even in garbage time, then I think Hall and Davis are fine, and maybe the Jets are nearing that point with Wilson out again. But if they abandon the run like most teams are trained to when they fall behind a certain amount, uh, that that hurts the running backs, even though both Hall and Davis can catch passes really well.
Yeah, I think only like the Panthers I can think of it as a team that when they're losing by a lot still
Yeah, and
really
that's how they
stick
get
to.
upsets. They make
Yeah,
the game shorter, and they get lucky, and it's just luck. But it's like too bad. They made the game come down to luck.
and sometimes it burns them. Let's move on over to the Sunday morning game. I believe this one is in Spain. We got the Commanders falling apart a little bit, going up against the Dolphins. Dolphins 2.5 point favorites in this one. I think the line has moved a considerable amount since it opened. Obviously, with the way the Commanders have played, even with Jaden Daniels, and then Jaden Daniels being sidelined for this one. I think that informs why we see the spread being what it is, and also the Dolphins coming off of one of the more ridiculous upsets of the year. I think they covered the spread by like 20 some odd points last week against Buffalo in a stunner.
That was weird.
Did the Dolphins figure anything out?
I don't know. If anything, I guess I don't know. Maybe they figured out a little bit about the Bills off. The Bills offense is kind of constricted a little bit, and I don't know if that's really to be attributed to the Dolphins or if it's just like the Bills are working through something against the Washington offense. I have trouble figuring it out because, in my opinion, pretty clearly the best part of the Dolphins defense is the pass rush, but the Commanders offense doesn't even really throw the ball much by design. And when you put in a quarterback like Mariota, there's a certain dependence on the run that's always there. So if Washington, either by strategy or just, inclination, sort of run the ball a lot and don't really give the Dolphins pass rush a chance to materialize, then the Dolphins defense can all of a sudden just look like permanently on the ropes at that point. If they can't hit someone in the backfield, if they can't hit the quarterback here or there, then they sort of just have bad coverage guys and bad defensive pursuit. So the Washington run game could be, including Mariota, could be kind of productive in this game if Cliff Kingsbury has the right game plan and sort of is disciplined enough to stick with the run. I think they should be able to, though, because it's not as if Tua, even if Waddle's going off, it's like is Malik Washington going to get to 60 yards so Tua can get to so much as like 240 cleanly? I'm not really worried about it. So I think Washington's in a good spot to get an upset here if they stick with the run.
I kind of do too. I'm always leery of a team coming off of a big upset the way that the Dolphins are. Dolphins have been one of the more unpredictable teams this year generally.
Yeah. Achane is definitely a force all the time. So that's like the
Yes.
one constant we can take with them. And it's like if you don't, as a defense, which Washington has had a lot of issues, and that's the way the Dolphins win. But it's not going to be, in my opinion, from Tua like tearing up the Washington defense. Although maybe I'm selling them a little short.
I think the way that happens is like Achan on some like angle routes, like getting him lined up with one of those slow-footed Washington linebackers, and he just dusts them, and you're off to the races from there. I mean, we have Achan as RB1 this week, and I have a hard time
Yeah.
disagreeing with that. But yeah, I still feel a little bit weird about like trusting the Dolphins to cover this one. Just overseas game, things can get a little bit tricky in those spots. Even and everyone wants to write off the Commanders, I think, and I think that's fair. But the Dolphins are like a hard team to trust in the other bucket. So torn on that one, but definitely firing up your usual Dolphins in this spot. We do have a super chat from our guy Fantasy Meatball. It's been a while, Meatball. Where you been?
Thank you
Good
very
to
much
have
for
you
the
back.
question.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we got a tricky one here. We need a running back and a flex option, and our options are a little bit tough. We got Brees Hall, Travis Etienne, I think, not Trevor. Theo Johnson or Greg Dortch. So we're really kind of needing this week to get us over the hump. It looks like
I really hope
sitting at
that's
5-5.
Travis.
Yeah, I'm gonna
If it
go
is,
ahead
then
and
I
assume
like the
it
running
is.
backs.
Yeah, just both the RBs.
Yeah, assuming there's not some sort of tight end premium detail with Theo Johnson, I think Hall and ETN are both, despite difficult conditions around them, they're both locked into workloads that are worth a decent amount of currency, really, especially compared to, in my opinion, guys like Dortch and most tight ends. It's more like when we complain about Hall and ETN, it's more like we're saying we wish this was a little bit better in these different ways because it could be better, and then we'd all be happier. And those teams are holding them back, but they are still at worst flex plays in nearly any format. And in ETN's case, I think you could argue for running back too, even.
I think so too. Like ETN was the lock for me from this group.
Yeah,
It's tough to know what to make of Theo Johnson because we don't know what the Jameis offense is really gonna look like with the
right.
Giants
All
and Dortch.
Slayton, just
Right.
just just bombs.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Him and Wandale, the ghost of Jalen Hyatt, if he's even like still doing anything. And then I guess the thought for Dortch would be because of Marvin Harrison's
Yeah.
absence, but still
I'm just
can't dive in.
Yeah, and the disclaimer there is I'm literally like the I don't dislike the guy, but I am the least fan of Greg Dortch on earth. Like everybody else who is aware of Greg Dortch thinks he's better than I do.
Right. So
Somewhat
yeah,
biased, I guess, but I think he's really bad is the reason I feel that way,
he doesn't really feel like a true NFL receiver. I mean, it's amazing that he's had the career that he's had. Always will respect him for the Wake Forest days, but I think ultimately you go with Hall and ETN here. Much again appreciated, our guy Fantasy Meatball. Before we get on over to the Sunday main slate, we got a message from our friends over at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. So if you're listening in podcast form, we'll have that in the description. I think this is also in the live feed description as well. So go ahead and check out our friends over at Dabble. We also got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And look at that. It's Sunday afternoon. We've got the Falcons. We've got the Panthers. We got the Falcons 3.5-point favorites. Panthers, their Linsanity run came to a bit of a halt last week against Tyler Shuck and the Saints, whereas the Falcons, a couple weeks in a row now, they've played good games against both like the Patriots and Indianapolis, but fell short in both of those instances. The Panthers obviously rinsed the Falcons earlier this year. For some reason, I kind of feel like the Falcons get their comeuppance here a little bit, though.
Sorry, as in the Panthers are going to get the worst of it?
Yes.
Okay. I believe
I used it wrong.
the same thing. Granted, I don't know how to explain the last time these teams played. I definitely, even as a person who didn't like the Atlanta coaching staff, especially in front office, like I like the players enough. It's definitely like strong at some points and unnecessarily pointlessly weak at some others in ways that were totally avoidable. But the Falcons have some really good players. It's not just on offense with Bijan and Drake London. On defense, they've got enough good players now that you sort of forget all of them when you try to list them off the top of your head. So sometimes really, really weird stuff happens in the NFL, and I know it would be really, really weird for the Falcons to lose 35-0 to this Panthers team the first time they play and then beat them, in my opinion, maybe by double-digit points the second time. But I kind of feel like double-digit win for Atlanta is more likely than Atlanta losing this game.
I do too. I just think that the Panthers, the way they're set up, it's like you were saying earlier, like it's so predicated on just shortening the game and getting luck based results. Whereas the Falcons, even though they get in their own way a lot. I still love that pass rush that they've got. I think they have a really good secondary. So I think that they keep a lid on this Panthers offense. And I think as far as the Falcons attack is concerned, I still feel like, again, you on paper it should be a lot better than it is in reality, but I still think it's enough in this spot at home to get it done in somewhat emphatic fashion. But as far as like your fantasy assets from this game, I think you're still firing up Rico Dowdle. There is some hemming and hawing, however, about Tet McMillan. Where are you with him right now?
What is the hemming and hawing? Sorry, I don't know if I missed something.
It's just. I think it's kind of like the song remains the same, where it's just he's connected to Bryce Young and this offense.
Oh, people are like longing for a true breakout and are not happy that it isn't occurring. It's understandable enough, but you're right. It's just to express irritation with Bryce Young, and it's like Bryce Young didn't truly ask for any of this, and he can only do what he can. They're stuck with him, or at least committed to him over Andy Dalton, who's the theoretical potential improved alternative, but it's Andy Dalton, so probably not. We've seen him play with the Panthers. He sucks too. So getting mad about the Bryce Young thing instead of just like letting it go is a little odd, and it would be borderline like elusive to be sort of clamoring to the Panthers that like you got to fix something about this. We can't make Bryce Young 6'3". If we could, we would have done that, So until that happens, or until we get a different quarterback, you're just going to have to kind of know that McMillan is very good and is not producing the way he could with a better quarterback, but simply will have to wait until he gets one. So I think you start him if you have him in fantasy, because it's unlikely in my mind that you have better alternatives at this point. But if you're lucky enough to have clearly better receivers than a guy who's still on pace for like 1,100 or 1,050 or 1,100 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, then your team must be doing pretty good.
This is true. We have McMillan rated as receiver 24 this week, so you're still starting him. Maybe not expecting that ceiling outcome in this game, but those are kind of like the main fantasy.
You take 8 targets, You don't cry about 8 targets.
That's true. You don't. And that, I suppose also, is Algier like flex viable potentially? I mean, you're kind of riding the line of touchdown or bust.
Yeah, I think as much as he's sort of overqualified as a backup, and as much as we know that Algier can produce when he gets opportunity, there's still such a narrow path for it to occur. Like, he needs such a specific script and in such specific usage situations to come through, and those conditions are basically never predictable. Case in point, last week. Like, why would you have suspected that last week would be the best game of the year so far for Algier out of 9 games, given some of these other matchups? When you're sure he'll do well, sometimes that other Panthers game. I mean, back in week 3, I know, and the Dolphins game in week 8, I remember thinking in both cases, like, yeah, Algier flex week, let's do it. And it was just a complete wipeout both times. So I won't really tell anyone that they should ever look for a reason to play Algier. I think it's just, if you have to start him, at least you can cross your fingers and hope for last week's kind of numbers. But expecting it is, I think, a little overly optimistic.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Maybe if I do like a Falcons stack for DFS, I would consider Algier.
Yeah.
But season long, probably trying to avoid that if I can. Let's go to one of the better games of the week. We've got the Bills and the Bucks. This one in Buffalo. The Bills 5.5 point favorites in this one. Again, coming off the big upset loss to Miami. The Bucks just fell to the Patriots themselves. I was willing to kind of like brush aside some of the Bills misgivings, like going into their bye week, and then they come out of it. They rinse the Panthers. They beat the Chiefs. Then they lay the egg last week in South Florida. Are we starting to get a little bit concerned about this Bills team?
Yeah, I definitely was guilty of assuming that they'd be fine, but so far it hasn't really been the case. And losing to the Dolphins and losing the way they did, I I don't know. I can't really blame anyone for going a little bit panic mode. Josh Allen's numbers still look kind of okay, and it's easy to single out Keon Coleman in particular to say, like, if this number just went up, the rest would kind of fit into place. I don't have an easy explanation for why Keon Coleman has kind of stalled since week one. But I don't know. I guess I'm just ready to make the same mistake again. I still just sort of assume that if only because of the Josh Allen factor, the Bills will figure this all out. And maybe they got simply caught looking ahead a week, because this game definitely was much more important on paper than the Dolphins, who they had plenty of reason to assume they could just beat without hardly trying. So the Buccaneers, this is a tough game to call, in my opinion, because the Buccaneers have been shorthanded all year and have played well, especially, considering the adjusted expectations. All year they've played really well and pretty much always overachieve. So even if the Bills play better, that's not to say the Buccaneers can't make the Bills sweat or even beat the Bills anyway. But I do have trouble thinking all through, because like Todd Bowles' defense might make things pretty tough on Joe Brady and Josh Allen if Joe Brady and Josh Allen don't look better in this game. And meanwhile, the Bills' run defense has kind of been like an ongoing issue. So do we know, is Irving maybe going to be back for this one?
We had the Bigfoot picture of him yesterday at practice. So it's hard to say for sure. I think that's going to be one where I'm paying close attention to the Friday injury report to really make a call there. It would be big.
Although, Sean Tucker, I guess, though, did give them something last week as a runner, and that's kind of what we figured all along, is like White's a really good pass catcher, but not a good runner, to the extent that Tucker could give them more. And maybe Tucker is good enough to beat, sort of like a homecoming game for him, being from Syracuse. I know it's different, but he, I think, is capable of running on this Bills run defense if Rachaad White is not. So between that, the Baker factor, Egbuka looking really locked in with Baker, I have trouble taking the Bills to cover, but I think I would take them to win.
I think that's playing it right. I think I am inclined to take the points in this one. So latest on Irving would be limited at the walkthrough on Wednesday. So again, we'll get some more actionable stuff on him by the time that you got to set your lineups this weekend. But I do think, yeah, if they're sitting Irving for another week, Tucker becomes a pretty interesting play, because the Bills, if they do have a weak point in that defense, it is against the run. Speaking of the run, James Cook has just one game with over 13 fantasy points in his last 5 outings. It looks like, he had the huge game against Carolina. He did run for over 100 against KC on 27 attempts, but should we be concerned about him in this matchup? Is the sort of lack of production out of Cook becoming something that is limiting this offense?
I don't think so. I think, if anything, the Bills were probably over dependent on Cook's rushing production. I don't think he's built to withstand the usage that they were giving him to this point, that they are giving him still. I do worry about him breaking down a little bit toward the second half of the year or something. But the past 4 weeks, he's actually been, he has a 216-yard game, a 114-yard game. He has 87 on 17 against the Falcons, who I think will prove to be an above-average run defense. So Cook has played really well, and even last week, 5 catches helps a lot in PPR. So I can't think of a scenario where I would be benching Cook, and I would consider him kind of just an every week, at least tournament consideration in DFS.
Okay. Yeah, the monster games are certainly in the realm of possibility for him. I wouldn't suggest like benching him or anything, but just bringing up, I've kind of noticed that a lot of the James Cook investors out there have been left a little bit wanting, I suppose, these last couple of weeks.
I got a little addicted to those September numbers, and there's like 20 every week, maybe better than 30, 13, and 12 over a 3-week span. But the second one is still really good, and those 30+ point weeks can make a big difference in your win-loss totals.
And, I think I also follow the Vegas implied total here a little bit, where the Bills are expected to push for like 27 points in this one. If they do get there,
the Buccaneers defense is nasty. Actually, I think the more that I think about it, it's especially if they get Reddick back soon. Like those corners are good enough that they are rotating out Jamel Dean, not even because they're benching him. It's just because they're like, we have to get Morrison some snaps. Like we have 4 corners who should be starting, and that plus Todd Bowles is scheming, and Vita Vea is a nose tackle. Really is a lot to get through as an offense.
It is. So this will be an interesting challenge for Buffalo's offense, and if they can hit that implied total. So maybe you look at the under at this one for this one, 48.5 at some shops. Let's go on over. We've got the Chargers and the Jags. Chargers coming off a nice win Sunday night. The Jaguars. Oh boy. Oh boy. And we've gotten additional like tough news for them with Travis Hunter being out for the season. Who knows what to make of Brian Thomas at this point? Who knows when Jacoby Myers is going to be kind of like up to full speed? So a lot seemingly kind of working against the Jaguars in this one, other than the fact that they don't have to travel 3,000 miles for this one.
Yeah, the Jaguars have definitely had a rough go of it, and Liam Cohen has at the very least, you can see it on his face. He did not expect it to go this way. He's somewhat flummoxed in the meantime that these things have been so difficult for the Jaguars. But I still think Cohen might. I would bet on him turning out still to be a pretty good coach. I think it doesn't mean that he's bad, that the Jaguars are bad again. I think the way Cohen is failing, the way the Jaguars are failing, feels a little bit different in that I would say they're kind of like struggling toward they're struggling toward an identity of the team that they should have been working toward years ago but did not, and now they're behind, and it's just tough to catch up with in some ways, and especially when you have the injuries that they had. But I think they're going to the Jaguars will sort of show up for this game and pretty much the rest of the year. I think Cohen, even though he was kind of blindsided by how bad some things have gone, it's one thing to get caught off guard, and another to show an inability to adjust. And now we kind of wait to see how much he can adjust. But in this matchup, even against the Chargers with a CFL offensive line, I just don't know how much I can trust the Jaguars with anything in particular. And they might still be without they might be without Jordan Lewis again, who quietly was a pretty important defensive player for them, even though Jerry and Jones did a pretty good job last week. So that would be a bit of an issue here. And if Parker Washington is out, I think that hurts too. Granted, Jacoby Myers should just plug right into the slot in that case, and Parker Washington previously played the slot, which I think really suits him. And I think he's come on in a way that we can suspect Parker Washington is good, at least from the slot. Myers, I don't know. Myers in his second week. If Washington is out, I think you can feel okay about Myers, or at least a lot better than you felt last week. So it's not an easy match. It's a bad matchup probably to have to go against the Chargers. But if Parker Washington is out, and if Brian Thomas is either out or just sort of unable to deal with the physicality of the Chargers defense, which I think would almost be more likely than not, then there should be a lot of slack for Jacoby Myers. So maybe he gets 8 to 10 inefficient targets, but still take the Chargers to win in a game that probably has some ugly low points for both offenses, but especially the Jaguars. And I think, of course, even if Cohen ends up being good, in my opinion, Jim Harbaugh has him and Minter have it pretty much all figured out already in the meantime.
They do. So I think that this is a good setup for the Chargers. And yeah, the Jaguars, I mean, you just think about, we talked about the Buccaneers' ability to kind of overcome a critical mass of injuries at their skill spots. It seems like the Jaguars have had similar injury luck, but without the same ability to kind of move past it. Brian Thomas limited in his practice on Wednesday with that ankle, and Parker Washington with the hamstring. Did not practice. So yeah, I think that the door is open for Jacoby Myers, but hard to feel great about like the rest of this Jaguars offense in this spot. And then your read on the Chargers offensive side of this.
I'm really not sure. It's a little bit dangerous of a spot. I guess most spots these days are dangerous for the Chargers with the state of their offensive line. The Jaguars, though, I guess you would say their defensive. I always forget the name of their new defensive coordinator. I think he might be pretty good though. They seem to be sort of in that paradigm of like the Packers and the Vikings with the disguise coverages and sort of more zone emphasis than maybe in past eras of the NFL. Against the Chargers, though, I personally would suspect Herbert is much better than most quarterbacks at figuring out those zones. And I think we can give the Chargers the benefit of the doubt, including even Greg Roman to some extent, that at least they understand their issues and are thinking clearly about them. They don't have any delusions about like, well, this will be easy. This will be easy. So they sort of they give a certain amount of shelter to Herbert and as much as they can, as far into the game as they can. The challenge with that is Kamani Vidal can't really lift the level of the offense. He sort of just reaffirms whatever baseline you're at, and he doesn't drag it any lower, which is why I think you see him be he's generally a useful player for the Chargers. But this is the kind of game where it would have been nice to have a Hampton or maybe even a Harris type fully healthy, because it would be nice to have a running back who you can count on sort of outplaying their conditions every once in a while, because this will probably be difficult conditions to run through, and the Chargers have to be patient and avoid turnovers and sort of just let their defense help them accumulate field position over the course of the game and wear out the other side, and then kind of open some things up. But Gadsden practicing fully.
Yes.
I think you can feel good about him. He seems to me like he's a big, if not primary way that the Chargers are kind of like working through some of these zone situations where they're trying to get especially the consistent yardage, the consistent easy yardage without Herbert having to wait in the pocket and take a hit. Gadsden gives them that, and they really need that right now.
Exactly. So that was super encouraging for him to be able to log the full practice on Wednesday. Feels like he's on track to give it a go this weekend. And again, in this one, the Chargers 2.5 or 3-point favorites on the road in Jacksonville. Let's move on over. We've got the Bears and the Vikings. We've got the Vikings 3-point favorites against Chicago. Chicago squeaked another one out last week against the Giants. The Vikings, meanwhile, I thought that their offense, it looked okay in the first, 20 or so minutes of the game. And then it just kind of evaporated. And then when they got into desperation mode in the fourth quarter, it seemed like things kind of picked back up a little bit. Jalen Naylor, of course, had the huge game. But the big question really seems to be surrounding, can JJ McCarthy support these top flight receivers like your your Justin Jeffersons, your Jordan Addisons, and so on. It seems like Hawk is kind of a lost cause at this point for fantasy purposes. I don't know how much to really take from the Naylor detail. I think that like the Bears secondary is more gettable than Baltimore's was. So I think that you can have like better expectations for this Vikings passing game this week, and it's at home. So I don't know. Where are you with this one?
It's complicated because, in my opinion, both quarterbacks are pretty bad right now. But man, JJ McCarthy is just about as bad. He's like Spurgeon win level bad, John, to go really remembering a guy at you in an almost hostile way. JJ McCarthy though is just he's not going to be 23 until like January, February or something. So it would make sense that JJ McCarthy could at once be this bad and still through development improve to the point that he's an acceptable starter or maybe even a good one some number of years in the future. But right now they have to bench him. They have to get him off the field. So even if it's Max Brosmer, and even if it's only 1 week with Max Brosmer when it gets to that point, even if they got to sign just some random free agent quarterback after Brosmer, I don't care. They have to get McCarthy off the field. So I expect that to happen, but I don't know when it'll happen, and I don't know how much further struggles it'll take for the Vikings, for O'Connell to sort of reach that boiling point. But maybe this game, I don't know. The Bears are a team that with how well the Vikings did last year and how kind of loaded the rest of their roster is outside of the quarterback positions, like they probably Vikings fans probably look at the Bears and thought, well, at least we'll win that game. And if the Bears win this game, I think that might be it for McCarthy in 2025, and they'll let him compete for the starting role, maybe even hand it to him next year. But this just has to stop. It's crazy how out of place he looks. He looks not at all like an NFL quarterback, and to be in that state with the kind of surrounding support that he has, it's almost a sin, even though it's not really his fault, So I think. Meanwhile, on the Bears side, I of course am not really high on the way Caleb Williams is playing right now, but Caleb Williams has so much more going for him right now than McCarthy does, including just that Caleb looks like he at least belongs on the field. It looks like he's flustered too often, but at least there are plays that Caleb makes where you go like, oh, okay, yeah, we gotta give him some more leash, give him the leash back. That was good. Let's see what he can do. And then maybe he disappoints you there, but at least he gives you the flashes. And JJ McCarthy's not even giving you the flashes right now. And I don't know if I might have gone a little too galaxy brain thinking this through, but I think in a weird way, Caleb Williams kind of matches up well with the Vikings defense in the sense that so much of Brian Flores's effect is seen in like the disguise coverages and like the confusion that it gives the quarterback. But when you do that against Caleb Williams, I don't think he was really reading that stuff anyway. It's like you do these disguises, all these tricks, and it's like I think he's staring off in a different direction and doesn't even notice it. So if you do all these disguises, it's like it looks the same to Caleb either way, and he's waiting for somebody to go, streaking down the sideline with like completely obviously wide open, and then he'll throw it, and like he'll make some daring escapes and make some tight window throws from difficult platforms, difficult velocities, and that part is what gives him something to really work with going forward. He struggles to get to that scenario too often, and that's when he just kind of jams up and takes a bunch of sacks. But it's like against the Vikings, between the blitzing and between spending the sort of bandwidth that they do on disguising coverages that I don't think Caleb could have read anyway, at the very least, the Vikings are sort of, I think, spinning their wheels on defense a little bit, like doing tricks for no audience to witness.
Like the scene for the surfing scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall. You're doing too much. Do less. When it comes to that Vikings defense. And then backing up your point on JJ McCarthy, according to our fancy little player page at rotowire.com, the advanced stats section, McCarthy is throwing what is considered a bad pass on 25.9%.
I can't believe that's all. Attempts. I would have guessed it was at least 85.
That is the top 0.3 percentile for if you're
the sacks it that too, way. Dude. The we keep talking about it, but like the untouched pressures that seem to occur when McCarthy is on the field, it's either he's screwing something up with the calling the protections or something, or the offensive line wants him to get killed. There's no third possibility.
Yeah, he is taking a sack on 12% of his dropbacks, which is unacceptable. Last item here on the Bears front. How are you feeling about the run game for them this week? We have Swift as an RB2 this week, and Monangai more as like a flex viable guy. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's tough to make a call on a guy like Monangai when he's clearly capable, but in the presence of Swift, only limited to 7 carries last week in a game where I would have liked to have seen him get more, and I would have liked to have seen Monangai get 26 snaps when Swift got to maybe 35, more like 30 though, certainly not 42. So if it's going to take 42 Swift snaps for Monangai to get 26, I don't know. That's sort of, I guess with Monangai, that's that Algier kind of territory again, where it sucks when he's on your bench and he has a game like he did last week, but there's so many games you've already seen where if you had started him, you would have just gotten nothing for it. So it's only really Swift that I think you can feel like you should be starting, whereas Monangai is more like got bit by injuries, or this guy's bad and now I got to start Monangai. That's more when I would start him.
Yeah, you're missing JT or Kamara this week who are on bye, and you're kind of pinched for options. Maybe then you can consider Monangai in your flex spot. Sticking in the NFC North, we've got the Packers and the Giants. The Packers 7-point favorites. I think I saw a stat earlier that the Packers are 0-5 against the spread this year when favored by more
Ugh.
than 4 points.
The, the
The Packers are
we need
bumming
to
me out.
we need to coin like a Joe Bartle themed curse for like this whenever the Packers are favored by 7.5 or whatever. Like, oh my god, ring the bell. It's the
Yeah.
joke. It's the curse. So yeah, I think the Packers are clearly frustrating. It's not as if the Eagles are an easy team to beat. They're a tough team even in the lowest weeks. The Eagles are tough. But if the Packers are going to be the team that they're supposed to be, the kind of team that I think you could have fairly expected LaFleur to have forged them into by now, they should have won a game like that, or at least they shouldn't make things so complicated as often as they do. And I, of course, attribute that to LaFleur getting cute with his play calling. But last week it wasn't really that. I don't know. Maybe there's some criticism to make there, but maybe Jordan Love was to blame last week, and then against the Panthers, you blame LaFleur, and when they combine their powers, the Packers become one of the most needlessly underachieving teams in the league. But I think it's sort of hard to screw up this matchup from the Packers side, like with Jameis Winston at quarterback. And I know Dable got fired because the Giants look terrible, but the team sucks and they've had so many injuries. Blaming Dable is something the only time it makes sense to blame Dable is if you're Joe Shane and you're looking for a scapegoat. Otherwise, right. Dable was not part of the problem. And if you want to see Jameis Winston play quarterback without Brian Dable sort of keeping him in line, it's however bad people thought it was with Dable, it's going to get worse. And I think Jeff Hafley's defense is probably one of the last kinds you want to play if you're Jameis Winston or the team starting Jameis Winston. So I know the 7.5 seems like a lot of points, but I think that the Giants, because of how many injuries they've taken on, if nothing else, and then adding in a dose of just generalized dysfunction for making a head coaching firing so that the bad GM, who really sucks, by the way, Joe Shane is terrible. It is crazy that guy that he was put in the position to press this button, and him knowing it as the button that gets him to keep his job a little longer at the expense of someone else losing theirs. I don't know what that Mara guy is thinking. I don't think he's lucid. So I think the Giants certainly can match whatever level of needless dysfunction the Packers might bring. And I think LaFleur, despite these things that I complain about with him, he is certainly capable of locking in. And when he locks in, he's very good. And I do think that this is a game where the Packers just kind of stomp all over the Giants.
Yeah, I came into this thinking that I would probably just fade the Packers with that big of a number, but the Giants do really have a tough setup here, and I think Dart was kind of like keeping things afloat, and we saw that last week after he leaves. The Bears are able to go up and eventually win that game. You're missing Neighbors, you're missing Dart, you're missing Scattaboo. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. And Jameis coming in cold again, like you said, without Dable to kind of like help him a little bit. Yeah, I think I like the Packers in the under. I think that we just see kind of like a gross game where the Giants struggle to get to like 10 points, and then the Packers just sort of like by almost like no accomplishment of their own are just able to take care of business by double digits in this one. I think I'd like Jacobs a good bit in this spot. But beyond that,
Emmanuel Wilson, I think, is I'd almost rather play Emmanuel Wilson than Kyle Monungai, honestly, just because I do think, and this could easily be wrong, I'm assuming the Packers win by a lot. If they don't, that would be a really stupid ranking decision on my part.
And there is also like a sense of urgency, I think, for the Packers now, like where they were in the NFC North standings. It has slid a little bit with the Bears resurgence and the Lions keeping things rolling. So the Packers can't really afford to mess around here if they want to keep the division in their sights. Let's get on over to the Bengals and the Steelers. Good news out of Bengals camp: that Joe Burrow Looks like he'll be back this season, and maybe not too long from now. Not this week, though. Of course, it will be Joe Flacco again. The Bengals 5.5-point dogs on the road. Bengals obviously won that crazy Thursday nighter a few weeks back. Steelers licking their wounds a little bit after falling to the Chargers. So, what are we looking at here? I'm seeing a 49.5. So there's an implied fantasy goodness here.
Yeah, let's hope so. I have trouble figuring out the Steelers, I guess, every week at this point. And other than Aaron Rodgers being kind of bad or at best very limited in his applications at this point, and other than sort of assuming the Steelers are at once run dependent, but kind of not that great at it. The defense, I guess, especially is where the Steelers I can't really figure out, because there's times where you see that pass rush and it looks exactly as good as you would think on paper, where with 5 down reps like that, the 3 down reps, the 2 outside linebackers, those guys are basically a screaming pass rush when they get going. And when they really get going, it doesn't matter how bad the corners are playing. As long as Joey Porter doesn't hold, then it doesn't matter how bad the corners are playing on the play, because the quarterback's just getting devoured. But if the Pittsburgh pass rush is any less good than that, the whole defense kind of falls apart, and the run defense gets exposed at times if the 3 down linemen can't sort of swallow up the run play on the play in question. So you can definitely imagine ways that as long as Joe Flacco is somehow protected a little bit from that pass rush, that the Steelers at that point would mostly have a bad defense left. And then as far as Pittsburgh's ability to keep up, it's like Rodgers' limitations and whatever limitations of the Pittsburgh run game weighed against the fact that the Cincinnati defense looks like one of the worst, generally plays like one of the worst. So which fails faster, the Cincinnati defense or Aaron Rodgers? I think it's fair to think that Rodgers, especially to be fair to Rodgers, if there is a robust and effective run game that he has to leverage, and if you can kind of comfortably set him up with these dialed up shots downfield, he can still make those plays. But what Rodgers, of course, doesn't have at this point is sort of the flexibility. Like old earlier in his career, Rodgers would just make magic things happen, and now it's more like if things aren't perfectly designed, he sort of just tips over on the play. And for that reason, I can't really pick the Steelers to cover. I think for the Steelers to cover, it requires a scenario where the Steelers are on defense getting to Flacco, and maybe it's as simple as they will, and maybe if they do, Flacco can turn Flacco can become turnover prone very quickly. He can throw intercept. He can get hot from the interception category without any notice. So that's certainly an easily understood way that the Steelers could win. It's just I don't know if, especially with Flacco kind of getting rid of the ball quickly, I don't know if he's going to get that rattled. I'd almost need the Flacco injury to be an explanation or something.
I'm a little worried about Flacco turning it over. This is more woo woo than anything, but I have in my mind's eye, I just have a hard time seeing the Bengals without Joe Burrow sweeping the season series against the Steelers and winning this game in Pittsburgh. So I know it was great for Cincy the first go round, but I could see that the Steelers kind of getting their revenge in this spot. And I think one of the kind of notable things from the first matchup was how much the Steelers kind of bludgeoned the Bengals with their tight ends. Do you envision something similar here? The Bengals do rank 32nd in points allowed to tight ends for fantasy, according to our numbers.
I don't know. I think the way I would look at it is the Bengals defense is kind of bad at most things, and the Steelers, maybe more importantly, sort of just need to run their tight ends to this extent. I mean, we'll see about Roman Wilson getting going a little bit is interesting. I think it's almost puzzling that it took Wilson this long to get going. I thought even if he was just a decoy, he could give the Steelers some snaps, some speed to leverage against the opposite corner if the defense is leaning too aggressively at Metcalf, which has been an ongoing issue. But part of why the Steelers need this 3 tight end bit is the same reason they run so many formations with 2 tight ends and a 6th offensive lineman, which is that they are super profoundly dependent on the run, yet not very good at running the ball. Jaylen Warren, I think, is pretty clearly a good player, but he also clearly is better suited to a 1B role than a pure 1 role, which is what they're dependent on him for. And it's great for Warren for fantasy purposes, and especially in this game. I think it's totally reasonable to get your hopes up as a Jaylen Warren investor in this game. But as far as the 3 tight ends things go, and especially as it pertains to fantasy, I don't know how you're supposed to reliably capture that value for fantasy purposes. Like, we know Darnell Washington, Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith are good players. We know that if the Steelers are having success on offense, it will probably have a lot to do with how those 3 are playing. But if you have 3 tight ends splitting what is already a sparse, a really limited passing game, I don't know. I'd rather not bother. I suppose if I had to deal with one, it would be Freiermuth, though.
I'm thinking it through, and in NFFC, I think I am going to have to start Freiermuth over Hawkinson. But I'm
by all means,
limping there.
Pittsburgh's been. It seems like they've been using Freiermuth a little bit more pointedly lately, as if sort of in the first month, Arthur Smith was sort of working through, how do I want to use these 3 tight ends? I'm not quite sure. And maybe in the last 4 weeks, you've seen Smith sort of decide he is more sure, and that Freiermuth is the clear pass catcher of the 3.
Yeah. So I think that, again, defense matchup really kind of helps me be a little bit more optimistic about the Steelers this week. And, could see this being a good day for Rodgers. I think Hendrickson is doubtful for this one with his hip.
That'll help.
That's one less guy coming at you if you're Rodgers, for limiting the tip over potential, as you so eloquently put. So I'm feeling good about my Steelers options where I have them for this week, but that's not reinventing the wheel when they're playing the Bengals. Let's grab one more in the afternoon window, and then we'll hit a quick break. But we got the Texans and the Titans. Stroud not practicing as of Wednesday, coming off of that concussion, missed last week. Davis Mills took over. Earlier this year, the Texans really just kind of handled the Titans, but that's been kind of the norm. I think the Titans are coming off of a bye. We got an ugly implied total here of 37 and a half in this one with this game set in Nashville.
Yeah, I guess the Nashville part of that is doing a lot of lifting in the spread, because I don't know what the Titans do ostensibly at all, really. Other than Jeffrey Simmons, it's just none of their roster is any good.
No.
Maybe a couple offensive linemen. It's just brutal. This is not a team that should be competitive. It's a team that should be as bad as it has looked. Maybe Cam Ward should have looked a little better. I don't know. I can't really put too much on him with how truly awful the rest of the roster was. And like a lot of the teams in the NFL, the people who ran the front office just deliberately made a product that just has nothing going for it. So I think you can believe that the Texans are bad, more or less, certainly on offense. You can believe that. But at least the Houston defense is pretty nasty most of the time. And especially against a vulnerable quarterback like Ward, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, if Danico Autry could stay healthy, stay on the field, he's, I think, kind of a problem too. So Cam Ward, if he's going to get anything going, he needs to get the ball downfield. Trying to get through the underneath intermediate against this Houston defense is just a no-go, or at least it is for a quarterback in Cam Ward's situation. And yet the downfield part is much easier said than done too, both because only DK can really get downfield for the Titans receivers, and getting anybody, even your fastest receiver, downfield against this defense before Anderson and Hunter get to the quarterback, it's at best, a Russian roulette kind of thing. So I think the Titans get buried just kind of from how bad they are, and specifically like that the Texans defense sort of becoming so dominant in this game that it's almost like more the Texans defense might score more points than the Texans offense in this game.
So on that front, I mean, obviously, I think for DFS purposes, Houston's defense would be one of those ones that it's worth
Oof.
paying up for.
Be nice to have
Potentially,
them.
that it's probably like 4K or something, I would imagine.
And every once in a while, you get that like 35-point defense, and why not this Titans team? Why shouldn't it be them who serves it up?
The Titans are so abysmal. I still am not going
Contemptibly
to give up
bad.
on. Yeah, I'm not giving up on Cam Ward, but I think that like no quarterback, no matter how ready they were, was going to be able to succeed in this environment. But it has been pretty rough for
Amy
him.
Adams Strunk ran off Mike Vrabel to the Patriots. And this is also a team that before Vrabel had his own sort of decline, had A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry. One of them shipped off before the window was even supposed to close. So just incredible to go from that guy, Vrabel, to the Nepo hire to where we are now, and just having nothing at all to show for what has been sort of it's as if they were tanking, and but they don't have any good, cool stuff either.
They've got next to nothing to show for it. As far as if you're looking at this Texans offense, here's the targets from last week to give you an idea of what maybe to expect with Davis Mills back there, assuming that he's going to start again. Nico Collins drew 15 targets last week. Dalton Schultz drew 11. Jaden Higgins 7. And then we had 4 for Noel and 3 for Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I was encouraged to see Jaden Higgins finally play more snaps than especially Xavier Hutchinson, but Christian Kirk too. I like Christian Kirk, but if he's this beat up, fragile, whatever you call it, there's not really anything he's supposed to do at that point. I mean, he's kind of just damaged goods, I suppose. But Collins, of course, is just a rock. Yeah. I think with Davis Mills, even you can feel quite good about Nico Collins in this game. If anything, in a weird way, it's like Davis Mills out there sort of makes the Houston offense even more dependent on Collins because the quarterback there's fewer alternatives to move the ball. CJ Stroud throwing the ball to Higgins is better than Mills throwing to Higgins. Therefore, Collins becomes more uniquely productive relative to Higgins, but I still like Higgins a lot, and I still feel like there's a lot more in there than the numbers kind of indicate at this point. The 29 targets on 336 snaps. I still think Higgins is a starting boundary receiver in the NFL and an above average one. So if Kirk and Hutchinson are phasing toward the periphery, I like certainly Collins, but I'm getting my hopes up too for Higgins to step up. Maybe I might be biased though because I want Higgins to do so well, and I'm kind of a Schultz hater, so it's easy for me to believe something like, well, Schultz will definitely regress.
Well, you're gonna hate this, but I think if you are pinched at tight end, you could do worse than Schultz this week.
Still,
if he's going to be drawing those targets,
Yeah, both things can be true. Like Schultz,
Yeah.
especially because 19 targets over the last 2 games and 10 targets 4 games ago for Schultz. You are well off at tight end if he's your backup at the moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start him in our staff dynasty, and then some has been made of the Houston running backs. I mean, if you have Woody Marks, if you held on, or if you scooped him, I don't know if there's a better week to use him necessarily. Although like last week, way out snapped Nick Chubb, I think, but they were trailing by so much, so that does make some sense that they'll probably have like the positive game script this time around. So maybe that puts Chubb back on the radar a little bit. But your thoughts on Woody Marks if you've got him this week?
The only thing that really makes me pause on Marks at this point is that we kind of already went through this one time earlier this year, and then they pulled the rug out from under us, had him play 27 snaps, get 7 carries after playing the Titans and getting 17 carries and 4 catches the week prior. So whatever way you look at it, at least Marks had 17 carries and 4 catches the last time these teams played. Even if the Texans kind of yanked his playing time around since then. Chubb, I think, can still run, but just in general, to get a look at Marks, the Texans have reason to kind of go with Marks. And it also might be reasonable to sort of suggest that Davis Mills could use more pass catching help. You could say easily the same about Stroud whenever he's out there, but especially Mills, you might want there to be a truly good check down option, just in case Collins, Higgins, Schultz, whatever are not open, or because Mills didn't see it or whatever. Marks can pick up slack in the passing game better than Chubb would, and I can't go assuming, or I can't guarantee anybody that Marks will in this case keep the workload 2 weeks in a row, but I would lean that way. I would kind of, if I had to guess, I would guess that rather than the contrary.
And I think the Texans will be able to kind of do whatever they feel like doing in this spot against Tennessee. So
that's the danger, though. If the danger to Marks in this game is that, like, for some reason DeMeco Ryans is like, let's get a Gumbo Wale out there, and, like, even he rips off a 25-yarder or something. But they should stick with Marks, and I think the Texans have lost enough games this year that they shouldn't really feel safe against anybody.
Good point. Before we move on to the afternoon window, got a message from our friends over at Draft Battle. Weekly draft fantasy football is here. Welcome to Draft Battle, the only fantasy football platform where the draft is king. What's the best part of playing fantasy football? Well, it's the draft, of course. So why do we only draft at the beginning of the season? At Draft Battle, you can enter snake draft contests every week all season long. And the best part, you can get $100 in bonus cash right now at sign up with promo code RotoWire. You heard that right. $100 in bonus cash with promo code RotoWire. That's RoTowire. Draft Battle contests last 1 week and have no season-long commitment, no salary caps, better odds. 8 teams per contest with the best ball format, which means no roster management, plus super flex scoring and weekly payouts. Injuries derail your season-long league? Well, stay in the game all season long with Draft Battle. High stakes, weekly draft fantasy football. Bonus cash is not withdrawable. You must be 18 or older and present in select states, 19 or older if you're in Nebraska. Visit draftbattle.com for details. Again, our code over there is RotoWire. Get yourself that $100 in bonus cash. We also got a message from our friends over at Chalkboard. Cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL, that's ROTONFL, to claim your free pick and a 100% deposit match. Onto the afternoon window. We've got pretty great or 2 real headliners in this window, and then the Ravens-Browns will just be like that forgotten game on Red Zone. But leading us off here, we've got the 49ers and the Cardinals. I guess this one's somewhat of an undercard. Then we got Seahawks, Rams, and Chiefs, Broncos a little bit later on. But Niners, Cardinals. Niners 2.5-point favorites on the road. Cardinals, I felt like I got rug pulled last week, or maybe I was just buying too much into them being okay against the Cowboys, but they got smoked. At no point was that game competitive against the Seahawks. Now they welcome in another NFC West opponent in the 49ers. So how's this one going to shake out?
I think the Cardinals have, in a weird way, more talent than the 49ers, but the 49ers are still so much better coached. I'll go with them. I understand that it would sort of take, in a way, like underachieving on some part of the Cardinals roster, overachieving on the part of the 49ers roster, but it's always easy to give the benefit of the doubt to the Shanahan offense. So it is easy for me to believe something like, well, then Mac Jones will simply overachieve, or Kendrick Bourne or Jawan Jennings will simply overachieve. If that's what it takes, then that'll happen. Or at least I see it more likely than the Cardinals playing to their talent level in any given week. I don't think that's very likely. It's more likely to happen on the offensive side, or sorry, defensive side. Much more likely to happen on the defensive side than the offensive side. I think the Drew Petzing system on offense is terrible. I think even if Jacoby Brissett is better than Kyler Murray, which I don't really believe, Brissett we know is limited at best. We know what happens with him when he starts at quarterback. It's not good. So the offense, in my opinion, is just abysmal. Contemptible again comes to mind. Their defense, though, if only by accident, did accumulate a lot of talent. And I forgot to check if Ojulari started playing yet, but they have a bit of a swarm on defense. The Cardinals do. So it's not exactly an easy matchup for the 49ers, and it is legitimately dangerous. But I give the benefit of the doubt to Shanahan after many years of having to witness his players on offense play better than they have any business doing.
On the injury front, it sounded like BJ Ojulari was limited in Wednesday's practice, coming off that ACL, and then seems like Ricky Pearsall was able to return to practice on Wednesday for the 49ers, but still no slam dunk that he'll be available for this one.
If Pearsall were back, that would be significant, and not in a way that, he just plugs in as their wide receiver one and in fantasy just takes off or whatever. But it would make, at the very least, the jobs for Jawan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne easier. The 49ers are dependent on two tight end formations right now, even though those two receiver reps are pretty dreadfully slow. Bourne ran a 4.67 at a pro day like 8 or 9 years ago. Jawan Jennings ran a 4.72 at the combine, so that's a real 4.7. So getting Pearsall's speed on the field would be huge for the 49ers, including in this game.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if that ends up materializing. And then on the Cardinals side, with Marvin Harrison being out, I mean, what is your what's the offensive strategy here for a Cardinals team that, like you were alluding to, isn't particularly well organized on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I'm not glad that Harrison got hurt, but I am, if only in a silver lining way, I am glad that we're now finally going to see the Drew Petzing offense in its sort of truest, most ugly form. And I think with a guy like Harrison getting subtracted, we're going to get a really insightful, display of how, as much as Harrison might have struggled, he was protecting them from something much worse. This scheme is quite awful. I don't think you can do a lot with it, and I think Harrison's struggles sort of, if anything, muted the obviousness of that. I think it was too easy for them to watch Harrison and think, he's struggling and he's screwing up, and it's more like if it were a receiver less talented than him, it would rapidly get worse than you thought it could. And I think this is perfect game to test that theory. Even though the 49ers don't have much defensive talent at this healthy, I should say, defensive talent, I still expect Saleh to have them coached well enough that they, not to necessarily the degree that they do on offense, but on defense too, I expect the 49ers to overachieve. I just kind of take that for granted. Maybe that's wrong, but these corners are pretty good. I think in the current state, even though this wasn't the design of the 49ers defense going in, their strength is at the boundary corner reps. The Renardo Green and Diamante Lenore are probably their two best active players right now with the ridiculous onslaught of injuries they've taken. So Michael Wilson, I actually like Michael Wilson. I still think he's pretty good. And against Upton Stout in the slot, I think Michael Wilson can get something going. But this is bad. Greg Dortch, this is not good. Andre Basellia, Xavier Weaver, what is going on? You got to Elijah Higgins, who had played receiver at Stanford with Michael Wilson, is literally a better wide receiver than Greg Dortch, Xavier Weaver, or Andre Bachelia, and Elijah Higgins is their normally third tight end. So that's how bad it is.
So is 20 targets reasonable to expect for Trey McBride?
I thought you were going to say Wilson, and I was like, yeah, probably. But yeah, so 30 for McBride, 20 for Michael Wilson, and maybe the Cardinals have a shot.
Yeah, I think I am going to have some morbid interest in some McBride and DFS.
But he's going to break that. He's going to break that whatever Terrell Owens or Brandon Marshall catch record.
Brandon Marshall,
26 or whatever.
It's going to be crazy. So that's the last I have to say on that. We've got next up the headliner of the NFC West action. We've got the 7-2 Seahawks going to LA to face the 7-2 Rams. Both these teams 7-2 against the spread as well. Both playing at ridiculously high levels. I think we're starting to see some Matthew Stafford MVP chatter. Rams
Late on
3-point
that.
favorites in this one. I agree.
Stafford should have been no worse than second in the MVP rankings even like a month ago, probably. But he's definitely going to get a test here. High stakes game for sure. We're going to find out a lot about the Seahawks, especially. I think we more or less know what the Rams are. Maybe they'll surprise us in a few ways here and there as the season unfolds. But it's really the Seahawks, maybe more than any team in the NFL, who it's warranted to sort of really closely look at them and sort of, not as if to like deny them credit for what they've done, but sort of they really warrant heightened scrutiny right now to see just how serious they are. I think whatever they are, it's some version of good, of course. I think Clint Kubiak on offense, the offensive coordinator, deserves basically all the credit. I know Mike Macdonald's doing a good job with the defense and that Macdonald's a really good defensive coach, but this offense, the Kubiak effect is unmistakable. Like, even if you think Sam Darnold is really good, he is overachieving, and this is not to call them fake or anything. It's more to just remind people that quarterbacks don't matter. With very rare exception, quarterbacks don't actually matter. What matters much more is the surrounding offense, the degree to which the coaches put those players in position to be their best. And Kubiak, as much as any offensive coach in the NFL, has really cracked the current paradigm, the code of the current defensive paradigm. And it's to the point where I think there's going to be some adjusting done specifically to Kubiak. Like, the whole league is going to pay more attention to him after not really looking as closely as they maybe should have. But if there is a point where sort of the tricks run out, or like the margins get pressed enough that we see who the team truly is, it would be a moment like this for the Seahawks, because the Rams, as we said, we know what they are more or less on defense. I don't really know how they do it. They're all money ball on defense. It's a bunch of no-name defensive backs playing zone coverages, and it's coached really well. For years, this is what they've been doing, and the results are clear enough. They can have bad corners and still put forth at least an average pass defense, and sometimes they can really get the better of the offense they're going against, especially when those guys like Byron Young, Fisk, Turner, Verse, when they get going, the whole scheme of the Rams defense looks really locked in, and it's tough on an offense when they get you at that point. I don't know if again, this is one of those. This is why if the Seahawks can withstand all of this, look pretty locked in themselves on offense yet again, then I guess it's like the Seahawks can't really be taken as the underdog against really any team. They might technically be, the underdog for a betting spread or something, but it's like, you don't want to play them if they can beat this Rams team. And as I kind of talk through it, I feel like I'm sort of taking various leaps to get there that I don't feel like I need to make with the Rams. McVay is like a Kubiak level coach who has withstood the test of time, and defenses have shown they basically can't adjust to McVay. Like they try, McVay stays a step ahead of it, or there's something about it that they just can't decode. I don't know which it is, but it's one of the two. And Kubiak can get to that same point as McVay, but to this point, I think McVay has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt. And Stafford playing like this, as far as explaining how the Rams have been so good on offense lately in Stafford's big season, they've been running a lot of 3 tight end stuff and more 2 tight end than in the past as well. So it seems to me like McVay is kind of evolving every year, sort of counter adjusting before he even needs to constantly. And even if McDonald calls a good defensive game, I think the Seahawks are the team that has like more questions to answer in this game, even though we have reason to think they very well could answer them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and forth on this one, and basically until kickoff, I can't make a call between these two because the Seahawks have been, so red hot, so above expectation. They've been great on the road this year. They're 4-0 against the spread on the road, and 4-0 generally or straight up on the road as well. But the Rams are just really really tough too. So it's difficult to make a determination between these two. I just know that I'm excited for this one. We do have a commenter chiming in that he traded away Drake London for Bijan Robinson. That gives him a receiving core of Nico Collins and Puka Nakua, and he's got Bijan Robinson and Jameer Gibbs with Ashton Genty in your flex. So I think you're in pretty good shape there.
Yeah, I assume this is an 8-team league, or if it isn't, you're in
I
good
might be
shape.
generous.
Yeah, so you traded a 12 or so player for a 1 or a 2 or a 3 overall player, so always worth that.
Yeah, should be fine there from the sound of it. Next up, we've got the Ravens and the Browns. We got the Ravens 7.5-point favorites in this one in Cleveland. Over under set at 39.5. I know Lamar Jackson wasn't practicing on Wednesday, but I think the expectation is that he'll be good to go. I kind of have a thought for this one. Tell me if you're with me.
Okay.
I think we see Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, I think Sanders is pretty bad, but to be fair to Sanders, he has, given how badly Gabriel has played, Sanders has every right to kind of he's owed the chance to prove that he's bad,
Yeah.
or best case. To be fair, there's a chance I'm just totally wrong about Sanders, but Gabriel's awful. We never asked for Gabriel either, like when we saw Gabriel go ahead of Sanders in the draft, it was like, that's weird. And in the third round, why? What's the point? It's not no matter how bad Sanders is, it's like he's probably better than Gabriel. I mean, my God, this can't keep happening.
I've kind of felt all along that the Browns they were just kind of holding off until they had to start or use Shedeur Sanders because I don't think that you can put him like bench him afterwards. So that they've just kind of ridden out this time with Flacco and then with Dylan Gabriel. And I think if the Browns get down early, which is very possible, I think ultimately I could see some Shedeur in this game and them turning to Shedeur Sanders the rest of the way. This is the inflection
He
point,
really,
is my thought.
I really think Shedeur might be bad enough that he gets benched within a couple weeks too, but they have to still do it. They can't keep putting Gabriel out there. They should just cut Gabriel right now. That was such a bad pick. Let's be realists and move on already. This is not dignified for anybody.
No. Any concerns on the Ravens offensive front going up against this really good Browns defense?
Yeah, I think the Browns defense is good enough, and the Ravens are sort of still delicate enough with Lamar coming back from the injury. They've looked good more or less, but I don't know if they're really in a position where you want to see if they can really rip it. You'd like to buy more time before it gets to that point. So I think the Ravens are sort of reasonably at risk of giving up the cover here, in the sense that I don't think they should have an ambitious game plan on offense. I think they should let their defense and the field positioning do the work. Don't have Lamar drop back more than 20 times if you can control it. And I think they should be able to control it. Even if Derrick Henry has 25 yards on his first 12 carries and you go 3 and out the first 4 drives, I don't care. Just stick with it. The Browns will sink if you just leave them alone.
They will, as we saw last week. So, but I think, yeah, the Ravens just kind of like scratched this one out. I'm definitely with the total being as low as it is. I don't expect the Browns offense to generate much here. I think the Ravens defense has gotten a lot better over the last month or so.
Against these quarterbacks, John, the pass rush is always good too. And if they go to Sanders, even more. Sanders is going to get sacked like 40 times in his first 5 starts in the NFL. And this is perfect time to start working toward that, whatever record he's going to set there.
It looks like Mike Green is starting to come on a little bit for that Ravens defense, and adding a little bit to that pass rush, and Malachi Starks on the back end starting to look good as well. So
There is talent
um,
there, just not
yeah,
depth on the defensive line, unfortunately.
no, so that'll be their ultimate undoing, just probably not against Cleveland. I think like you'd have to have like a monster Judkins game for this game to get a
Yeah.
little bit topsy turvy for Baltimore. Moving on, we got the Chiefs and the Broncos here. Chiefs 3.5 point favorites. I know it was like a nationally televised game, so you can scrutinize it a little bit more. And it was a short week, divisional opponent playing against the Raiders. But Bo Nix last week was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life.
It is funny, isn't it, that we're seeing so much of the worst quarterback play we've ever seen in an era of the NFL where they have all but formally designed the rules to make it easy to throw the ball. Certainly easier than it was, 20 or 30 years ago. Bo Nix, not to say that the the book is closed on him or whatever, but yeah, right now he's pretty limited. He's a quarterback that you definitely want to hide as much as you practically can, and when his situations are limited to sort of gutsy plays where you just need like a Taylor Heineke kind of presence to keep it moving, then he looks good and even makes some plays that make you think like, oh, they should open it up a little bit. But every time you open it up with Nix, he quickly makes clear that he doesn't have enough pitches to make it through. And I don't know. I think the Chiefs invited a new set of questions on them after looking so good upon Rashee Rice's return. I thought that was a pretty big letdown to struggle that much against a Bills defense that, at the very least, was not at full strength. It shouldn't be that difficult to move the ball against the Bills if you're as good as I assumed the Chiefs were when Rashee Rice got back. So particularly with the Broncos pass rush looking just crazy as hell every single week, like you can't really just bank on the Surtain absence as a sufficient reason for Mahomes to get back on track. But I will sooner bet on Mahomes getting back on track than Mahomes blowing it here, especially if Bo Nix is the other quarterback. The Dobbins absence might or might not matter. If Mahomes plays as well as he should, slash as well as the Chiefs kind of need him to keep their Super Bowl ambitions alive, then Mahomes should be able to work with this. It should be even if he's got to grind through it a little bit, he should be able to crack the code in this game. And meanwhile, the Broncos, if it's reduced to RJ Harvey offense, that's great for RJ Harvey. I think he's really good, but Bo Nix throwing the ball 35 times or so, you can see the fact that Nix is failing consistently in the mere fact that Troy Franklin has more targets than Cortland Sutton. That's the defense saying, we don't think you can make we're gonna arrange things such that we think you can't make this throw to Sutton, and Nix nearly every time is like, you're correct, I can't make that throw. How about I throw it to this bad player instead that you want me to throw it to, and I'll just hope we win anyway? Probably not.
Nix has like the same like bail out of the pocket and try to make something happen problem that Caleb Williams does, but like with like half the arm strength. So it's just
and he doesn't like, I'll give Caleb this credit. He does try to struggle through it a little bit. You can see he's just not seeing it quite right, but he's trying really hard to see it. Nick's just kind of starts wilding out really early in plays, and it's been enabled in a sense that he's had some amount of success with it, but I think you're seeing less and less success each time he tries, or at least generally over time, the results have gotten worse.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs here. I mean, I think the Broncos defense is like the best I've seen this year, but
the pass rush is carrying them, and it can keep carrying. Guys like McMillan in the slot is really good. The pass rush, if it's going crazy like it has, that sometimes the quarterbacks just get washed away. But if that pass rush doesn't win the game and this is not generally a good spot for a team, if the pass rush doesn't carry the Broncos to a win, they have no way of winning, in my opinion.
I don't think so. Not right now. So give me the Chiefs in this one, and I'm even if RJ Harvey gets the opportunities, I guess you start him, but I wouldn't expect like a huge game.
I do like Harvey a lot. I'm a Bidet hater. he sucks. And if Dobbins is out, I do think, especially because it'll be so easy for Knicks to just check it down. Some of those Troy Franklin just nonsense passes are going to go to Harvey, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, you start him if you've got him, but I just am not expecting like a huge offensive performance for like we have an
No,
implied total of 20.5 for the Broncos, and I think the Chiefs have had
I
an
like
extra week to prepare.
27-10, something like that for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm in on the Chiefs this week. I think we see where the Broncos are maybe a little bit of a fraudulent 8-2
Yeah.
after this game. All right, we got two more to hit. We got a quick question here also on quarterback. You got a good problem to have here, our guy Scott, but Drake May tonight or Matt Stafford on Sunday?
I uh, I I think the season to this point, especially if it's a 6-point per passing touchdown league, I think it would like Stafford is maybe the he's certainly very defensible as a pick, but I don't know why I'm kind of drawn toward May. I just see the Jets defense as completely helpless, and maybe I'm making it too simple. Maybe I'm underselling the Jets defense, but if they are truly helpless, then Drake May could score 4 touchdowns in this game, even if he's only throwing like 25 passes. So that might be me seeking what I think is a higher floor in May. But I think the ceiling is as high with May too, because if somehow the Jets make the game just close enough that the Patriots throw it 35 times, if Drake May were to throw the ball 35 times and run it 5 times against the Jets, he could be the quarterback one of the week. So I'd probably go with May and try to worry about it too much, whichever way you go.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to regret either of these decisions. I just think you kind of hinted at it at a good point there, where the Patriots might not have to be at full go for this entire game, whereas I do anticipate that for the Rams and Stafford.
Definitely.
Kind of a bit more of a back and forth in that one. But I think like if the Patriots get to that point where they can kind of shut it down in the fourth quarter, it's probably because May has had a huge game already. So they're both top 5 to me. So really, it's a good problem to have between those two. But
I do think May
I
has
would
the higher
lean.
floor, if that is any consideration, but they both have high ceilings, I think.
Yeah, so good problem to have. But let's roll with Drake tonight against the Jets. Let's go. We got 2 more here. We got the Lions and the Eagles. Eagles 2.5-point favorites.
I'll go with the Lions here. Admittedly, I don't have a strong sense of what either team really is. I feel like the lowest points of these two respective teams make it sort of hard to understand how they've reached some of the peaks they otherwise have. But I'm if I'm being honest, I'm leaning Lions because the tiebreaker for me is I love Dan Campbell. I'm a big Dan Campbell fan, and Sirianni I think is a good coach in some weird, inexplicable way. Like the amount of success that he's had, I guess you have to say he's pretty good, even though trying to do the itemized description of how he is good, I can't really think of how it all works. He seems to get something out of the Eagles, though. So Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, has really hit the wall this year. Like the defenses of the NFL have really figured out his tendencies enough that there is not much element of surprise at this point. He sort of just needs the defense he needs the coverage to sort of make a big, obvious mistake to get a clear, clean pass. And some games he goes against defenses that are overmatched enough that there are guys open, and Hurts does do just fine when it is that clear. Maybe this Lions corner group is just so weak that despite Hurts' limitations or whatever else, and even if Aiden Hutchinson's playing really well, and even if the Eagles struggle to run the ball in this game, it still might be too much for corners like Terry and Arnold and Amick Robertson to deal with Devontae Smith, and even if AJ Brown is depressed or whatever, like he could get open. And then for calling the winning team and calling the spread, it's crucial to remember that Terry and Arnold can create yardage with penalties that don't show up in the box score. That wouldn't be any solace to AJ Brown's fantasy investors if he gets like 60 yards of penalty yards in this game, but he could, and it would be really difficult for the Lions if that were to happen. But I don't know. I guess I just I think this would be a hard fought game, whichever team wins, and I just I like the metal more of the Lions, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like in Monday night's game was I'm like still I'm upset at the YouTube TV situation regardless, but
Yes.
I had to pay like $5 for the night pass to watch ESPN on Monday night, and that's what I was treated to. Horrendous. But going beyond that, I do think that what the Lions do well defensively is going to like slow down the Eagles enough to get them into a situation where like they have to do things that they don't like doing quite as much, like go to the air a little bit more. I mean, we saw it against like the Broncos earlier this year where like there was all the noise about the Eagles not throwing it enough. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, we're going to throw it 45 times and they lost.
Ugh.
So I could see the Eagles kind of
When are they going to listen to
cowing.
us, John? We have never said in any case in NFL history that a team should throw the ball more, and the Eagles would be in such better shape if they
Certainly
listened
not
to
the
us.
Eagles.
Yeah.
So I do like the Lions as well. Did you take anything away from last week's game in the sense of Jamison Williams getting going a little bit more, and that being an incidental thing with Campbell maybe having more hands-on approach with the play calling?
It might not be incidental in that particular sense, and yeah, maybe I kind of skipped over the Dan Campbell taking play calling thing. That it can only be good news it's bad news for the offensive coordinator. It's maybe bad for the plan that the Lions had as an organization, but I trust Dan Campbell. I think the what it was not incidental was that Jamison Williams all of a sudden started producing better when the Lions started giving him shorter targets, when they did not make him like a whatever you'd call it 3 outcome receiver or 2 outcome, I guess, with making him run 17 yards downfield, average up the target. That's just taking him out of Jared Goff's range. It's exactly what you would do if you wanted to remove Jamison Williams from the target viability. You would do that specifically to get his production lower. So, of course, if you lower his depth of target, his production will increase. And Jamison Williams maybe was not that great at that sort of crosser route, underneath in general kind of route. Maybe wasn't something he was good at out of college because he was just used to getting into a sprint and outrunning people far downfield pretty much every play. But we've seen in the last couple of years, Williams has improved a lot. Like when he got the reps, he got better. Now he's just ready to go if they use him that way. And when he doesn't produce that way, it's because the Lions chose not to use him that way. So if Campbell is the reason that change occurred in the strategy, then I like Jamison Williams' chances of keeping it rolling because he's very good. I blame him for none of his struggles.
Same. He just never seemed like a natural fit with Goff and the way that he plays. But getting him into more accessible areas of the field for Goff, I think helps both Goff and it helps
Yes,
Jamison Williams.
absolutely.
So
Helps everybody.
Going to be very interested to see if that continues Sunday night against the Eagles, and then rounding us out, we got the Cowboys and the Raiders with the Cowboys 3.5-point favorites on the road.
Right. Bleak matchup, perfect for Monday nights. I think Dak Prescott, not a great quarterback maybe, but he's good enough that I think he alone is a reason to give the Cowboys the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe the Dallas defense is bad enough that Geno is good Geno, but if your number one receiver is Tyler Lockett, we'll see about that. I know the number one target is Brock Bowers, of course, but Tyler Lockett, I think, is the number one receiver right now for the Raiders, which is just, not to say Trey Tucker is bad or something. It's just he's like a peripheral, wide receiver 2, decoy, big play specialist type. Whereas Tyler Lockett, I think, could get, I don't know, 8 to 10 targets in this game if he plays 50 snaps. So I really like him. I like Lockett in DFS, and even if you're in a 12-team PPR league and you're just obliterated at receiver and Lockett's still out there, I really think you could do worse for this 1 week. But I lean Dallas to win in the end, maybe in a shootout. If the game goes shootout, I think that suits Dallas. If it's low scoring, I think Dallas can also win that way. I just think the Geno plus bad offensive line detail is a lot for the Raiders to overcome when we also have to assume their defense isn't good.
Yeah, I think I saw your guy Jackson Powers Johnson is hurt too.
He's
So
out.
like
Yeah.
so a bad offensive line getting worse, I think
Pete and
is a
Chip.
bad.
Pete and Chip might be a 1-year thing. Sad to say.
I know. It's a don't meet your heroes type of thing. I love Pete Carroll. I love Chip Kelly, but it seems like their last ride is
The goats fade. Even the
they
goats
do.
fade.
Before we sign off, if you have any other tricky lineup questions, I would like to, if you're watching us on the live stream, check out our Who Should I Start feature. Look at this. Look at this production value, Mario. I got
Wow.
a tricky one that maybe some managers out there are dealing with. Should I start Woody Marks? Should I start Kamani Vidal? Enter them both in. Hit that little decide
Marks.
button.
No, it's not.
Ooh, it's Kamani by a short margin, 54-4. So it is a tough decision, but the decision gets made for you on our Who Should You Start tool, or Who Should You Start tool. So check that out.
The
I
percentages,
find that very
John.
useful. We love the percentages.
It clarifies a range of outcomes.
It runs a lot of simulations. Look at that, 25,000. That's more than you can run. It's more than I can run. So
I didn't even do a full I just yelled out an answer.
That's right. So they do the thinking for you. So that's a great new thing that we just launched. If you want to check that out and some of our other stuff, we've got great prop tools, season long rankings, weekly rankings, tons of content. Check out rotowire.com if you haven't already. Go ahead and get 15% off your subscription when you use the code YouTube15. And you'll just be laughing all the way to a championship with tools like this. So highly recommend it. Tons of great stuff. Mario's articles and everything also must read every single week. But that's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for listening.